I never thought the sound of a phone ringing could feel like a punch in the chest. It was a rainy Thursday morning, the kind that makes the world look like it's behind a sheet of tears. I had just placed a fresh bouquet of daisies next to Dennis's picture on the mantel. My husband had loved those flowers, said they reminded him of sunny days and beginnings. A year had passed since I last heard his voice, yet silence still roared through our home. The phone kept ringing. Sharp. Urgent. I wiped my eyes, straightened up, and answered. Hello? A man's gravelly voice spoke. Is this Carol Thompson? Yes, who's calling? This is Mark Reynolds. I own Reynolds Classic Cars downtown. A pause lingered heavy between us. I believe we have your husband's 1969 Mustang. Anne. I think you should come down here. My heart stopped. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. That car wasn't just a car, it was Dennis's legacy. His pride. The one thing he had shined, polished, and adored more than his own reflection in the mirror. But my son Brian said. No. He had promised me it was safe. That he was keeping it in storage until I felt ready to decide what to do with it. I swallowed hard. There must be some mistake. My son, he told me. Ma'am, Mark interrupted gently. Your son sold us the vehicle. But the problem is, he doesn't legally have the right to do that. Betrayal rushed through me like a cold gust of wind. Brian. My only son. The boy I raised alone while Dennis served in the army. The one who held my hand at the funeral, swearing he would protect every memory we had left. I gripped the phone, knuckles white. Where is he now? Well, the man cleared his throat. He left for Paris. Bought 2 first-class tickets. Spoke very excitedly about a honeymoon. My lips parted in disbelief. Honeymoon? Paris? With Vanessa. The beautiful stranger who called herself my daughter-in-law. Something about her had always set my nerves on edge, too charming, too polished, always glancing at her reflection in the nearest shiny surface. She smiled like a person wearing someone else's happiness. My world tilted. My heart cracked, not from grief this time, but from something darker. Anger. I clutched Dennis's photo frame. I'll be there in 20 minutes. As I hung up, the rain outside roared louder. Maybe the skies were grieving with me. Maybe they knew that this wasn't just about a car, it was about every promise, every memory, and every fragment of Dennis that Brian had just driven away from us. But I wasn't going to let it be the end of the story. Not by a long shot. I grabbed my keys, slipped on Dennis's old leather jacket, my armor, and stepped out into the storm. I would get the Mustang back. And I would uncover whatever rotten truth led my son to betray his own family. Because love doesn't just disappear. It fights back. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time I pulled into Reynolds Classic Cars, but the storm inside me was still raging. The garage doors were open, revealing rows of gleaming chrome and polished paint. But among the sparkling beauties, I spotted only one car, the one that mattered. Dennis's Mustang. The familiar deep blue finish shimmered under the overhead lights. The white racing stripes he insisted on adding still ran down the hood with pride. His hard work. His devotion. Our memories. And now it was trapped under someone else's name. A tall man stepped forward, early 60s, weathered face, gray beard still streaked with oil from a long day's work. His eyes, kind but worried, softened when they met mine. Mrs. Thompson, he asked. I nodded. He offered me a hand. I'm Mark. I brushed past him. I want to see the papers, I demanded, voice trembling. He led me into a small office smelling of leather and gasoline. A folder lay open on the desk, divorce papers, will revisions, signatures. But what caught my eye was the bill of sale. Signed in careless pen strokes. Brian Thompson. Not a trace of hesitation. Not a second thought about the woman who raised him. Or the father who treasured that car more than anything else left behind on this earth. How could he do this? I whispered, barely able to speak. Mark didn't reply. Instead, he slid over a copy of Brian's ID they'd taken at the sale. Next to it was a receipt for a bank transfer. The amount made my stomach drop. $30,000? I choked. That car's worth triple that, Mark confirmed. Maybe more. Of course. Of course he sold it quick and cheap. Paris isn't cheap, their kind of lifestyle wasn't either. Mark leaned forward with a sigh. I didn't want to finalize the paperwork because I saw his eyes. They weren't excited about starting a life. They were scared. I looked up sharply. Scared? He nodded. The woman with him. Vanessa? She was the one pushing everything along. Wouldn't let him breathe. Said they needed the money immediately. My pulse hammered. So she was behind this. The manipulation. The urgency. The lies. Mrs. Thompson. Carol, Mark's voice softened. I've seen more than a few hustlers in my years. And that woman? She wasn't thinking about a honeymoon. She was thinking about a payout. I sat frozen. Mark hesitated before dropping the real bombshell. The bank flagged the wire transfer. They think the account used might be connected to a known fraud ring. The police have been notified. Blood roared in my ears. So. Brian is in trouble, I whispered. Mark's silence confirmed everything. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was danger. I stood abruptly, heart racing. I need that car back. I need something of Dennis to hold on to until this is fixed. Mark nodded. I already decided you should have it. Legally, things are complicated, but morally? It's yours. Always was. For a moment, I could breathe again. Then he added. But you should call your son. Now. My fingers trembled as I dialed Brian's number. It rang once, twice. Then a cheerful automated voice. The number you have dialed is unreachable. Mama? A young woman's voice came from nearby. I turned to see Amelia, Mark's teenage daughter, holding a steaming mug of coffee. She offered it gently, eyes full of sympathy. Thank you, I whispered, barely holding myself together. You'll get him back, she said quietly. Bad people can't hide forever. I wanted to believe her. But another voice inside me, the voice of fear, asked. What if they already had him? As I walked back toward the Mustang, the leather of Dennis's jacket hugged me close, reminding me of the warmth I'd lost. Paris suddenly wasn't a romantic getaway, it was a trap. And my son was right in the middle of it. By the time I got home, the sky had cleared, but my thoughts were only growing darker. I sat at the kitchen table with my phone in hand, replaying everything Mark had said. Fraud ring. Bank transfer flagged. Brian scared. Fear twisted inside me, sharp and unforgiving. Where are you, Brian? What have you gotten yourself into? I tried his number again. Straight to voicemail. I clicked open his social media instead. The latest photo appeared only an hour ago. Brian and Vanessa in an airport lounge, champagne glasses raised, smiles stretched too wide. The caption. Paris, here we come. New life, new beginning. My stomach turned. Vanessa's hand gripped Brian's arm like a trophy she'd just stolen. I zoomed in. Her diamond ring shimmered brighter than the future she promised him. Her lips painted in perfect red, the kind of red that stains everything it touches. In the background, beyond the expensive luggage and luxurious smiles, I noticed something else. Brian's eyes. Even behind that smile, they looked lost. As if he was silently calling out to be saved. A notification popped up suddenly, a message request from a profile with no picture. You need to talk to me. It's about Vanessa. A chill ran down my spine. Just as I went to respond, the three little dots appeared. Then the message came. You're not the first family she's destroyed. My hand shook as I typed. Who are you? The answer came almost instantly. Someone who trusted the wrong woman. Meet me tomorrow at the Café Belrose on 5th, 10 a.m. Don't bring anyone. Before I could ask more, the profile vanished. Deleted. Like it never existed. I leaned back, heart pounding. Was this a trap? Or the only lead I had? That night, sleep refused to come. Every creak in the house sounded like Dennis's footsteps. Every flash of car lights outside looked like Brian returning home. But reality sat heavy on the edge of my bed, cold and merciless. I held Dennis's photograph close. You spent your life protecting us, I whispered to the dark. Now I have to protect him. Morning crept in. I left early, gripping my purse like a shield. The Café Belrose was small, tucked between a bakery and a flower shop. Bells jingled as I stepped inside. I scanned every face, old man with a newspaper, mother with a toddler, young couple laughing. No one looked suspicious. Then she walked in. Long blonde hair. Designer sunglasses. A red dress so striking, it felt like a warning sign. She slid into the seat across from me without asking. You must be Carol, she said, voice low and smooth like poison. I stiffened. And you are? She removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were cold. Calculated. The kind of eyes that memorized your weaknesses. I'm Leah, she said. Vanessa's sister. My breath hitched. Sister? They never mentioned a sister. She leaned in. And if you don't want your son to end up like my brother, you'll listen very carefully. My heart lurched. Your brother? What happened? A shadow crossed her face. Vanessa ruined him. Used him. When he no longer had anything left to give, her voice cracked, anger turning raw. She left him with nothing but debts, and a warrant. Fear crept up my spine. Leah continued, your son is next. Paris isn't a vacation, it's a setup. She steals everything they have, disappears, and leaves them with the consequences. Brian, sweet, trusting Brian, had no idea. What can I do? I whispered, barely breathing. Leah slid a small envelope across the table. Inside, printed documents, bank statements, screenshots of messages, proof. And this, she added, placing a photo on top. Vanessa, kissing another man. Luxury watch on his wrist. Same airport lounge. She plays them like puppets, Leah said. You need to act fast. Tears burned my eyes. I just want my son safe. Leah stood, gaze softening only for a second. I want that too. Text him. Tell him to come home. Tell him anything, just get him away from her. Before I could say thank you, she was gone, like a ghost fleeing daylight. I clutched the photo, my chest tightening with both hope and dread. When I stepped outside, my phone buzzed. A message. From Brian. Mom, don't worry about the car. We're almost in Paris. Vanessa says hi. I stared at the screen, tears blurring the words. He had no idea. No idea that the woman holding his hand was leading him straight into a nightmare. And I was the only one who could stop it. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, Brian's message still glowing on my screen. He thought he was safe. Happy. Loved. But all he truly was prey. My breath misted in the cool air as the pieces aligned in my mind, too quickly, too dangerously. Vanessa had forced the car sale. Rushed the money transfer. Pressured the trip to Paris. Isolated Brian from me. Classic manipulation tactics. The kind predators used. I dialed Brian again, nothing. Texted him, no reply. Panic began to strangle reason. I stumbled to my car, gripping my keys so tight the metal carved into my skin. I had two choices. Keycap 1, sit at home and pray. 2, fight for my son like the mother his father raised me to be. I slammed the car door shut. I chose war. I drove straight to the police station, clutching Lee's envelope like a lifeline. The detective assigned to the case, Detective Harris, listened patiently as I explained everything. The fraud. The car. The trip. The warning. His expression grew more serious with each word. Carol, what you brought us matches several open investigations, he finally said. The woman you're describing, Vanessa, we believe her real name is Evangeline Parker. My heartbeat hammered in my ears. And she has a record, he continued. Fraud. Identity theft. International scams. She's extremely dangerous. I felt sick. He slid a clipboard toward me. We're issuing a notice to Interpol. In the meantime, keep trying to contact your son. Don't tell him she's under investigation, it could put him in harm's way. I nodded shakily. I thanked him and left, stepping out into a world that suddenly felt sharper, colder, more real. But I had purpose now. A plan. Every mile of the drive home felt like a marathon inside my chest. Back at the house, I went straight to Dennis's study, the room I hadn't entered since he passed. It smelled like cedar and aftershave, like him. His military medals glinted in their wooden case. He once told me, if anything ever happens to me, I need you to be strong for Brian. Well, Dennis. I'm trying. I opened his old desk drawer and found exactly what I needed, our family passports. Brian's included. He never took his with him. My heart sank deeper. Vanessa didn't plan for him to come back. I pressed trembling fingers to my lips to hold in a sob. I had to go to Paris. Before I could spiral into fear again, my phone buzzed. Unknown number calling. I forced myself to answer. Hello? A male voice, nervous, rushed. Mrs. Thompson? This is Ethan, Vanessa's ex from the airport photo. Leah told me you might call the police. I stiffened. Is Brian in danger? He inhaled sharply. Worse than you think. Vanessa, or Evangeline, she doesn't just steal money. She steals identities. When Brian's bank account is empty. A beat of silence. He becomes disposable. Ice flooded my veins. I can help you, he said urgently. I know where she takes them in Paris. But you need to leave, today. I gripped Dennis's jacket tight. Tell me where to go. He gave me an address, a district near the Montmartre area. A known haven for con artists and traffickers. I hung up, lungs tight. I stared at the Mustang in the driveway, Dennis's car. The last gift of protection he left us. I'm bringing him home, I whispered, fingers brushing the hood. I packed a small bag. Grabbed the evidence. Locked the house. And with a heart full of terror and determination, drove toward the airport. As the plane ticket printed, one truth repeated in my head like a prayer carved in steel. A mother's love doesn't end when her son grows up. It sharpens. It becomes unstoppable. Paris could try to swallow him. But I would burn that city to the ground before I let it keep my son. The city of illusions. Paris might be called the city of love, but that night, as my plane touched down, it felt like a labyrinth built on lies. The air was cold and damp, fog creeping along the edges of the runway like shadows looking for places to hide. Ethan had messaged again during the flight. Meet me at the address. Midnight. Don't go inside alone. I grabbed my bag, clutched the envelope of evidence, and stepped into a world that suddenly felt too big and too dangerous. A ride through darkness. My taxi driver, an older man with kind eyes, noticed my shaking hands. First time in Paris? He asked in a thick accent. Not exactly a vacation, I said quietly. He nodded, as if he understood more than I said. Sometimes strangers can read a broken heart better than family. We drove through glowing streets and glittering windows. Lovers strolled hand in hand, blissfully unaware of the pain lurking beneath the city's beautiful skin. When we reached Montmartre, the mood shifted. The lights dimmed. Alleyways narrowed. Silence hung heavy. "This is the address," he said, stopping beside a gray, aged building with boarded windows. My pulse hammered. "Merci," I whispered, stepping out into the cold. A figure materialized from the alley, hood up, hands shoved deep into pockets. "Ethan?" I asked cautiously. He turned. His face was young, too young to already look so haunted. "She's inside," he said. "Second floor. Apartment 2C. Is Brian with her?" My voice cracked. Ethan hesitated. Seconds stretched into anxiety. "I don't know. But if he is, we need to move fast." He led me toward a dark stairwell. The building smelled like mold, cigarettes, and desperation. Every step creaked, announcing our fear. We reached the landing, 2C. I could hear voices inside. A woman's sharp laughter. My stomach twisted, I recognized that sound. Vanessa's voice, sweet and venom-laced. Ethan nodded, and I steadied myself. We pushed the door open. There she was, Vanessa. Or Evangeline. Dressed in black silk now, swirling a glass of wine like the villain she truly was. And beside her, Brian. My son. But not the son I knew. He looked exhausted. Pale. Drained. Eyes red and unfocused. He didn't move when the door opened, didn't even seem to care. "Brian?" I called gently. He blinked slowly. Confusion flickered. "Mom?" Vanessa's smile curled, slow and dangerous. "Well," she purred, "the grieving widow arrives. Took you long enough." I stepped forward, fury boiling in my blood. "Let him go. We know who you really are." She laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "Oh please." He came willingly. He wanted excitement. Freedom. She ran her fingers along Brian's shoulder. He flinched. "You drugged him," I spat. "You're stealing his identity." Her eyes glinted like broken glass. "I prefer the term, inheritance." Ethan lunged forward. "You already ruined my brother's life. You're not doing this again." Vanessa's smile vanished, replaced with pure malice. "You should have stayed out of this, Ethan," she hissed. She reached into her coat, not for a gun, not for a knife, but a syringe. The air froze. Brian looked up at her, dazed. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" "Ending loose ends," she whispered. She moved toward him. And instinct took over. "No." I screamed. I grabbed a wine bottle from the table and struck her with every ounce of strength a mother's terror could fuel. Glass shattered. Vanessa collapsed, stunned, the syringe clattering across the floor. Brian slumped forward, dizzy and frightened. I caught him, pulling his head to my chest. "You're okay." "I'm here," I whispered, breath shaking. Ethan kicked the syringe away and quickly dialed the police. Blue lights flashed outside within minutes, sirens cutting through the night like justice arriving late but loud. Officers stormed the apartment. Vanessa was handcuffed, dragged out kicking and screaming. "You'll regret this," she shrieked. "He chose me. He loved me." I stood tall, Dennis's jacket wrapped around me like his protection. "No," I said firmly. "He loved an illusion. And now he's finally waking up." Brian sobbed into my shoulder. "Mom. I'm so sorry." I hugged him tighter. "We're going home." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed those words. Coming home. The flight home felt lighter than the one that brought me to Paris, though exhaustion clung to all three of us. Brian slept most of the way, his head leaned against my shoulder like he used to when he was a child. I stroked his hair gently, remembering the baby I once cradled, and the young man who nearly slipped through my fingers. Ethan sat quietly across the aisle, staring out the window. He'd spoken to the French police, given his testimony, and agreed to help with the ongoing case against Vanessa, now Evangeline, who would not be seeing the outside of a prison cell anytime soon. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to breathe. Back where we belong. When we stepped back into our home, the familiar scent of coffee and lavender washed over us. Brian paused in the doorway, taking in the framed family photos, the warm memories, the stability he'd almost lost. "I forgot how much I missed this," he murmured. He was quiet as he walked toward the living room, to the mantel where Dennis's picture rested. He stood before it, shoulders trembling. "Dad," his voice cracked, "I'm sorry. I should have protected what mattered. I should have protected Mom." I stepped behind him and wrapped my arms around his waist. "Dennis would have forgiven you instantly," I whispered. "And so do I." He turned, tears streaming, and hugged me like he used to, like he needed a safe place to fall apart. "I thought selling the car would help us start our life," he confessed. "Vanessa said it made sense. She said you didn't care about it anymore." "I care about you more," I said. "Everything we own is just metal and memories." "But you? You're my son. My breath. My heart." Brian buried his head in my shoulder. "I don't deserve your love." I pulled back, cupping his cheeks. "That's the thing about being a mother, you don't have to earn my love. You only have to come home to it." A week later, the Mustang rumbled into the driveway, restored beautifully. Mark had insisted on giving it a full tune-up before returning it. Brian stood beside me, smiling genuinely for the first time in months. "She's just as Dad left her," he said. He ran his hand along the hood, reverent. "What do you want to do with it?" he asked me softly. I took a long breath, the crisp autumn air filling my lungs. "There's more than one way to honor a memory," I said. "How about this?" I handed him the keys. Brian's eyes widened. "Mom. I don't deserve." "Yes, you do," I interrupted. "Because now you understand its worth. Not in money, but in love." He held the keys like something sacred. "Thank you," he whispered, pulling me into a hug. "I'll make him proud." I smiled. "I know you will." We visited Ethan often. He became like the younger brother Brian never had. "And Leah?" She sent updates on the case regularly. Over time, her anger softened into understanding. We were all healing from the same wound Vanessa had carved into our families. As for the dealership owner, Mark, he refused to take any praise. "I did what was right," he said simply. "Your husband built that car with love. Love doesn't belong on a price tag." He became someone we could rely on, a new friend in a changed world. A final goodbye. One evening, Brian and I drove to Dennis's favorite overlook, the place where he first kissed me and the place he told Brian how proud he was of him graduating. The sunset painted the sky in gold and crimson. Brian took a deep breath. "I miss him." "So do I whispered. "Every day." We stood silently, side by side. Then Brian smiled, a small, hopeful smile. "One thing's for sure, Dad definitely helped you find me in Paris." I laughed softly. "Your father was always stubborn. Even in heaven, he refuses to let anything happen to us." Brian slipped his arm around me, warm and steady. "We'll be okay, Mom." And in that moment, I knew it was true. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. Together.